Hello guys, today I'm gonna show you guys the college art project that I made while in London at UAL. This is an art book that I made as an illustrator. I'm an illustration major. So it opens up like that. I created all the visuals and I'm making this video because at the art show when I was supposed to finally show what I created to the whole class, I feel like I didn't get enough appreciation because no one was like standing in front of my artwork. So I'm making this video because I want more attention for it. This is how it looks like when you open it up. So the art project was, we were supposed to choose a space and investigate that space and make an artwork about it. So I chose a record store, which is one of my favorite places to go to. And this art book mimics the form of an actual record. So this is the size comparison. This is an Amy Winehouse record. And then when you compare it, it's pretty much the same. This was intentional and it was expensive to print. Anyway, I use high quality print for this. You open it up and you see this fascinating, magnificent illustration of the inside of a record store. This is how it looks like when you open it up, and I use forced perspective on this drawing. So this sky looks like it's really close, but when you go here, it looks like it's far away. Forced perspective. And I did that intentionally because here we have a special flap where you can pull out albums so you can actually experience what it feels like to go through crates at a record store. You can actually pull out 5 albums here. It was really time consuming to cut individual albums and insert it and glue everything together. And when you close it, there's this page where it shows a fun collage of all the images, all the posters, all the album covers I took a picture of, and I collaged all those images in this fun composition. All the interesting images I found. For example, this is the open and closing time, and then some fun images like prints, staff pics, and this interesting image of this guy lady. Anyway, when you close it, you see the back. And here I put a fake track list. In my report, I kind of lied. I told them that these were all the songs that I found from the Flashback record store because we were supposed to investigate one place, right? But these were just general songs that I recently found and I really enjoyed. So these are just my personal picks. They had nothing to do with the store. But the school doesn't have to know about that. But yeah, I included a fake track list to go with the theme of being in the form of a record. So I have like 21 songs here written here, and then to make this more accessible, I put a Spotify code here so people can scan it and instantly access the songs. And these were more collages of stickers I took a photo of and then incorporated into my artwork. So yeah, and I also included a false barcode. So yeah, that's a brief overview of my art book, and I'm now gonna show you how I made it, the process of making it, because I filmed the process of it. So here you go. This was the very first iteration of my art book. The sketches were very rough and in their beginning stages. You can see how my initial vision for the art book looked like in this mock-up. The inside shows the same warped layout as the final version, but the people within it look drastically different. One of the initial criticisms that I got for this version was that the people inside of the drawing didn't accurately reflect the people who would visit record stores. For example, the couple here weren't inspired by real people, but was inspired by 500 Days of Summer. And the guy here was just inspired by a random photo on Pinterest. After that, I made a second version which included figures from real-life observations. The cover was updated as well by adding figures outside of the storefront to make it more interesting. The inside is where you can see the most amount of improvement. All of the figures were drawn using the photos I took of the people instead of the record store. I felt more confident with this version because the figures helped to accurately capture the atmosphere of the place. Here's the side-by-side of the references and the illustration so you can compare where I got the inspiration from. At this stage, I was happy with my rough sketch and I was ready to move on to the rendering stage where I polish up the messier parts. Here, I'm already well into my process of making the final version of my artwork, and this is just a detail shot that I filmed, which I thought was interesting. Here, I'm selecting a specific part with my lasso tool and making squiggly lines in that selected area to mimic the details of a piled up record from afar. Here I'm adding a light highlight to my character so it pops out against the background because the background already has a lot of details in it, so I wanted to make sure the character pops out as well. Here's all of the layers that I created while drawing the background, and now I'm just flexing how much layers I created. When I'm finished drawing something elaborate like this, I like to go through my layers and just turn on and off each layer to see what it looks like. And now I'm gonna combine all of those layers into one. There's no going back. I was drawing on top of the rough sketch that I made, so When I was half done, I like to turn on and off the layer of the image that I just created, the final rendered version, to just quickly compare how much improvement that I made. This part is always satisfying to me. Here I'm drawing the details on top of the CD rack, and I'm using simple lines to give the illusion of detail. One of the ideas that I had to make the image more interesting was to have like ghost-like figures, not ghost-like, but imaginary figures of the singers popping out of the albums, so it would visualize how people feel when going through crates of albums. Now I was happy with where I was with the illustration, and just before I finalize things, I like to compare how it was before and how it is now, just to see if there's anything else to add or change. After I was happy with the illustration, I printed it out on a large scale paper, so I chose an A3 size paper, which was the largest paper size that my school printer allowed. And now I'm using the paper guillotine that's next to the printer to cut off the excess. Because the A3 paper was smaller than the 12 by 12 inch that I wanted, I had to combine two A3 papers together to come as close to the final size that I wanted. And this stage was just to see how my illustration would look like in a bigger scale, making sure it didn't look pixelated or blurry. Here's a wall of some of my failed attempts at printing. Because the printer makes my image desaturated, I had to adjust the vibrancy level before releasing it for print. If you know, the digital screen shows the colors in RGB while the printer prints in CMYK, so I had to make sure the print version looked as closely to the digital version. Now that I finished drawing the inside illustration, it was time for me to draw the cover. And because I already established a specific art style, I wanted to make sure the cover stayed consistent with that look. So above the canvas that I was working on, I put up the inside illustration that I just made, just so that I could easily compare and make sure they looked good together. And now I'm just browsing through my photos to search for the perfect person to include in my cover image. I ended up choosing this guy with the blue hat. This is the middle stage. I was trying so hard to not make him look like a criminal. Here I'm using my photo that I took of flashback to draw the storefront. For the logo, instead of just using the photo of the logo that I found on the internet, I retraced the letters, each individual letter, with my lasso tool to give the logo more personality and not look factory made. This was a minor step, but it helped to make the logo blend in more with the funky illustration. Here you can see how much better it looks compared to the original image. This is how the cover looked like after spending hours rendering it. Instead of drawing accurate perspective for the inside view of the store, I drew an abstract swirl to add more visual intrigue and just to cut down time in rendering. I drew the swirl in a way that the entrance close to the door would gradually merge into this gigantic colorful swirl. Once I was finished with the cover, I printed that out as well and put that up on the wall just to compare how it looks like with the other prints. This print failed because the contrast was too strong, and the one above failed because it looked washed out, and the last one was just too strong in vibrancy. At the end, it was just a matter of finding the perfect balance between those settings. Now that I had two completed illustrations, I was excited to combine those prints together to create a dummy that accurately reflected the scale that my final print would be in. This is what the dummies ended up looking like after I glued those pages together. Here I'm drawing the back cover of the art book, and right now I'm adding the link to playlist detail. And in this shot, I just wanted to show you the font that I used for the link to playlist wasn't actually a font, but was handwritten from me, referencing the typeface of graffiti artists online. Here I'm making the collage that will be on the opposite side of the flap. As you can see, all of the images were from the photos I took from the record store, so the final collage would authentically represent the space. I'm just browsing to see if there's any interesting textures that I missed that I could add to my collage. For example, this interesting floor texture. Or this photo of the entrance door where it shows the various stickers and posters on the door. All the images I extracted from the photos had its own layer, so I could come back whenever I wanted to move any image if needed. After I was finished with the collage, I printed it out as well to glue it to the mock-up art book. This is how the inside of the flap looked. I ditched the spinning record player idea into a crate full of vinyls, which I thought was more natural to the record store environment. As you can see, each album can be pulled out to mimic the actual experience of digging through crates. To make the visual look more engaging, along the frame I added some text and images to mimic the look of a game radar, so it would visualize the person's mind when crate digging. I think the forced perspective of the illustration and the flap helped to make the art book look more three-dimensional. This is a smaller dummy version I made to test out how the pages would go together for the final print. So instead of gluing individual pages together, the small version were made of double spreads, which allowed for a cleaner finish. So in total, the book would be composed of 3 double spread pages: the cover, the inside, and the foldable flap. For assembly, I just inserted the foldable flap in between the cover page and the inside page and glued everything together. This is the 2 dummies side by side. The bigger version is the size I hope to print in for the final presentation, and the smaller size shows the version that is assembled in a more polished way. Now I'm reviewing the paper options at the print shop, comparing prices and the paper thickness. I ended up going for the standard matte with inkjet coloring, which was the most affordable option for me while still having the print quality I desired. While my initial plan was to print 10 copies of the 12x12 inch art book for the art sale, that ended up being out of my budget, so my final plan was to print 5 copies of a smaller scale and then 1 copy of the original 12x12 inch size that I wanted. And the total for that ended up coming to a whopping 100 pounds. I don't know where I got the confidence from, but I was believing in myself that I would be able to sell each art book for 35 pounds and make all the money back. Anyway, after grabbing all the prints, I was at the library using the paper guillotine to cut off all the excess. For size comparison, this is how the 24 inch by 12 inch paper looks compared to the smaller scale version. The reason I could only print 1 copy of the 24 inch by 12 inch print was that each page costed around 6 pounds to print, which added the total to be about 17 pounds for each art book. To make several copies of this was too expensive for me, which is why I printed the rest in a smaller scale. These mini album tabs for the smaller scale art books were the most annoying to cut because I didn't have any scissors and I had to rely on the paper guillotine to cut each intricate corner. This is how the final version of the 12x12 inch art book looked like, and after me assembling all the pages and gluing all the pages together. To assemble the art books together, I kind of innovated with these paper leftovers, so I made these 3 little hinges that I could glue in between the foldable flap. And that's how I made those 5 little copies of my art book. One of the issues I faced while assembling was that the hinges were showing when the flap was opened, and sometimes the glue seeped out and ruined some of the print. To hide this, I printed out long strips that would go over the hinge part and make everything look more neat and tidy. To make sure the quality stayed consistent throughout the art books, I repeated this step for each of the mini art books and also the 12x12 inch art book as well. This is how the 5 art books looks like stacked up next to each other. After finishing each one, I put it under a heavy wooden board so it would flatten out everything. These were some free CDs I collected from the record store, and I wanted to include them in the presentation along my art book. To make them more pretty and fit with the vibrant visuals on my art book, I made custom CD covers. I was planning to sell these CDs at the art sale as well, so I advertised that they were at £1 each. To replace the covers, I just laid out the original cover and added my custom design inside. I made sure to put back the booklet inside so when people bought it, they would know which tracks were inside the CD. I had a total of 16 CDs, so I repeated this step for the rest. I wanted to make each CD cover a different color combination to make it unique, so I played around with the color wheel on Procreate to quickly come up with new variations. I thought the back cover should have a custom design as well, so this is me designing the back cover. This is how the CDs ended up looking like. I was very happy with the end result and liked that it added an extra charm to them. Now it was finally time for the exhibition day, so I'm currently in this elevator, transporting all my materials and my art books into the event hall. My setup place was in this corner of this exhibition place. I brought my CD player and some extra flyers I picked up at the record store to make my presentation more convincing. Also, I added a large information stand to let people know that my art book was interactable. Because the way it was presented, I thought the back view and the collage view were not visible, so I printed them out separately and then put them on the wall. Also, this way people could access the Spotify link as well. This was my section at the art sale. I had 5 mini art books for sale for £35 each, and my CDs for £1 each. I was looking at the event, kind of observing who would approach my art project, but I didn't really see anyone standing in front of it, which kind of made me sad. art sale, I wasn't able to sell any of my art books, but I did sell 5 CDs, so in total I made £5. But still, at the end of the event, I had a bunch of CDs lying around that I didn't know what to do with, so I ended up donating them to this charity shop.